Sustainable competitive advantage. I mentioned at the earlier part of the presentation that this was one of the most important determinants of, if not the most important determinant of ultimate success. Almost by definition, if we can't compete, if we don't win the competition, we lose. So how are we going to sustain our competitive advantage? Most important first point is we're not going to do it through our product is better. Our product is better is not sustainable competitive advantage. What is it? Our product is better is differentiation. It's important, but those are two different things. What do I mean by that? Our product is better is not sustainable competitive advantage because only now. If our competitors can launch a better product tomorrow, it's no longer advantage. So there needs to be something about our product and hopefully something about our strategy that makes it very difficult for competitors to dislodge us or beat us once we get out ahead. So how will we compete with small followers? These are, I define as startups like you that don't have the first mover disadvantage. They are second or third movers. They wait for you to suffer the fallback from being first, and then they leapfrog you and become the most successful company in your space. Also, large companies who are always watching smart startups to get the next big business idea, and then they let you, again, open up the market. They let you educate the customers. They let you invest in the first generation of the technology. They see what goes right, what goes wrong. Then they launch a competitive product in the market that they give away for free. And they put a $100 million marketing and advertising campaign behind. And just steamroller you like the cartoon, and then you're flat on the pavement. And what's your IP strategy that you're going to use to avoid that? And also, what are competitive strategies that you can use to create barriers to entry for competitors like this? This is a few of the competitive strategies that we've identified that can be used by startups to create what we call last mover advantage. So meaning you're the company that captures the bulk of the value in this market. I mentioned before, but worth repeating, switching costs, lock-in, and network effects. So switching costs and lock-in mean that once a customer buys your product, it's not that easy for them to switch to a competing product. This can be something like I talked about before, where we sell handles and consumables, and if I switch, I have to buy all new handles, or all new consumables. It can be something like a long-term contract or a subscription. You notice that, for example, software companies no longer focus on selling shrink-wrap software or even selling software that you download from internet. All the software companies are moving to what? What's the pricing model? Subscription. Why? Because a couple of reasons. Subscriptions create recurring revenue, but subscriptions also create customer lock-in. So there are many ways to create switching costs and customer lock-in. You should think about all of these and how can they be applied to your product. Network effects and network externalities. Network effects mean that by moving first or early into a market, you can help to create barriers to entry for followers because the value of the product increases based on the number of people using the product. This is easily understood in a product like a social network or instant messaging. Like, how many people are using Facebook? How many people are using some other social network? Which is what?
WeChat.
No, not instant messaging yet. Start with the social network. So let's say everybody's using Facebook for social network. Now messaging. How many people are using WhatsApp? Are using Line? Are using WeChat? Are using Instagram? Yeah. So you can see like the number of social networks and messaging platforms are highly limited. Why? Like, let's say everybody who's using Facebook, why did you choose Facebook?
My friends on Facebook.
Yeah, and Exactly, and why did your friends choose? Yeah, and why did they choose? Their friends, right? And the same thing with messaging. How did you choose your messaging platform? It's the one your friends are using. And let's say I have a new messaging platform. It's called Douglas Chat. I want you to shift to this. Do you want to shift? Nobody wants to shift yet because nobody else is on it. So we have to get critical mass of people using first, and then you might shift. So that's called network effect. Another related phenomenon is called network externalities. This is where the actions of one player in a market affect the value of the product for other players in the market, and vice versa. This is another very powerful barrier to entry if you can create it. How does that work? Let's look at an example like iPhone and App Store. There were many smartphones before iPhone, they all failed. iPhone was the first successful smartphone, and it's been hugely successful in a way that compares to very few other products. And why is that? One of the most important reasons was network externalities. What do I mean by that? Apple launched iPhone together with App Store. So the people that first bought iPhones started to download apps onto their phone from App Store. As people downloaded apps from the App Store onto their iPhone, this caused more developers to write more apps for iPhone. And as more apps appeared on the App Store, more people bought iPhones. And this drove the development of more apps in the App Store, which created this tremendous barrier to entry for iPhone and App Store. And you notice this basically destroyed Nokia. In 2006, Nokia was the leading mobile phone company in the world, and now they're gone. Basically because they couldn't respond to network externalities that were created by App Store. And everybody else has been playing catch up on App Store for the last 7 years, trying to get their own network externalities going by getting a critical mass of apps and then getting a critical mass of users, which drives more apps, which drives more users. So if you can create network externalities, this is a very powerful way to block competition from followers. Unique channel access. So unique channel access can take many forms, but basically means that your company has either unique or favorable access to distribution channels. If you can do that, this is another powerful way to block followers. Favorable access to inputs is the flip side. So if we can achieve favorable access to some critical input for the market, this can also block followers. And then standard definition and institutional barriers like IP protection. But I think what you can see from this page, from this chart, is your patents are just one part of a much bigger sustainable competitive advantage strategy. Unless your patents are airtight and are the most difficult in the world to go around, you better have a much bigger sustainable competitive advantage strategy than just my patents. Now, what determines how strong the patent is? What do I mean when I say strong? Opposite of weak. But what does it really mean? Yeah, I mean, how hard is it for somebody who knows about your patent and reads your patent to provide a solution to the same customer problem without violating your patent? So we'll skip the cases of where your patent doesn't matter because people violate it, and then later you can make some money by suing them, but still your company fails. Let's forget about that for a minute, but that's another risk. But let's look at the legal case where I know what you're doing, I read your patent, I see how you solve the problem. I'm going to solve the problem slightly differently in a way that doesn't violate the patent, and I'm going to beat you competitively. So if I can do that, your patent is weak. If I can't do that, your patent is strong. So then you have to think about your patents in a different way. Not how difficult is it for somebody to violate, but how difficult is it for somebody to provide a competing solution. And I believe that our most difficult challenge as a startup is beating big companies. Because big companies have all the things that we don't have. They have money, they have economies of scale, they have brand and reputation, they are further down the learning curve, they have access to complementary assets. We are missing all of these. So what is our response to this? I like to think about our competitive response to large companies in a startup as like a martial arts strategy or military strategy. Like, how many people have trained in martial arts? Have served in the military? So a few people each. But we have similar strategies in both. A situation where I am, let's say, a small force facing a much larger, more powerful force. Or I'm in the military. Or I'm a martial arts combatant facing a larger, much more powerful combatant. What's my strategy? Is it headlong, frontal, full frontal assault?
Avoid getting hurt.
Run, right? So, but I'm looking at cases where we can run because we have to compete. But what do?
Divide them up.
So we
Use
look.
the opponent's post against them?
Use?
The opponent's post against
Yes. We want to. Actually, every strength has a complementary weakness. So we want to understand what's the weakness in that strength. If I have, let's say I'm large and powerful, maybe I'm slow to respond. Maybe I'm not fast because I'm too big. So therefore, strategy that's based on speed and deception may be much better than a strategy that's based on strength. And that's what we do as a startup. We look at how do we turn the apparent, the real advantages that big companies have into weaknesses. And this goes back again to my focus on innovation. The more successful a company is, the more big and successful a company is, the more deeply wedded to the current technology product it is likely to be. Because the current success of that company is based on the current state of the market. Therefore, they have the most invested in the status quo. Therefore, it's often the most difficult for them to respond to a disruptive challenge in this industry. And you see, this is where new players tend to replace incumbents when they attack on this basis. So we look for companies that are quite successful, but in a market that's about to change. This is what happened to Nokia. They didn't get beat by a startup, but they got beat by Apple. What was Apple's experience in mobile phones before iPhone? Nothing. So in that sense, they're like a startup. They're a company moving into a whole new product category, and they crush a market leader because they introduce a disruptive innovation that the market leader couldn't follow. You see this happen again and again. The existing successful players, they already have well-established value chains that they need to satisfy. Their company is organized around the current state of the market, and they also tend to have some risk aversion because they want to conserve what they already have. Like another great example, who's a company that developed the film photography? Kodak. And actually, who's the company that developed the first digital camera? Kodak. And who's the company whose name was synonymous with photography for over 100 years? Kodak. And how are they doing now? They're gone. Gone because of the disruption in industry. Why? Because they were not able to successfully innovate as the market shifted from film to digital. They had a tremendous investment in photographic paper and film processing. They had an organization that was built around like camera, film, and the old industry structure. So as the market changed, they're not stupid. They saw it coming. They did their own research in digital, but they couldn't adapt. Same thing at Nokia also. Nokia actually developed smartphone like 10 years before Apple. They developed a tablet before iPad. They had all the all the advanced technology products in place, but they couldn't respond to disruption in industry, and they lost. So this is another reason that we focus so much on innovation and disruptive innovation, because this is how small companies or new companies beat the big players.